Cancelled.
Schweezy.
Okay, so it's time to continue our annual Christmas movie review. This is our penultimate episode before Christmas, and I decided to pick typically a kind of a Hanukkah movie to choose from for this one. So I chose 8 Crazy Nights, a Adam Sandler film that in 2002, when it came out, I thought was the most hilarious shit ever. Now, 2002, I would have been 9. I could have watched it when I was 10. For the sake of I lived in Missouri. I saw it in Missouri, but I lived in Kansas at this point. Also on Pier 5, for those of you keeping track. And I wonder, it was funny because I was thinking about doing a Muppet Christmas Carol, but I was like, I like that movie. And I don't have many stories besides the fact that it's probably the best interpretation of A Christmas Carol. So I decided to go with 8 Crazy Nights, an Adam Sandler movie. Now, this is not Christmas at all. I just remember as a kid watching this and thinking it was so funny because there was that's a technical foul song in it. And I thought that was funny. And there was just so many fart joke humor, I would say. Adam Sandler humor, if we're going to be honest with it. This movie is just Adam Sandler humor from 2002. And you can probably guess what type of humor that is.
That's rough, buddy.
So yeah. And, I do this for you, folks. I do this all for you. Now, last week I watched The Polar Express, and that was painful to watch. And I'm not going to say this one was easy to watch, but it was way easier than The Polar Express. I fucking hate that movie, The Polar Express. But 8 Crazy Nights was, luckily enough, it was barely over an hour, so it was pretty easy to watch on my end, at least. When I first watched this movie, I was with my cousins, I guess. We were watching this, and that's when we initially watched it the first time. I guess my mom was not fully aware of the movie I was watching, so I watched that. But I think I eventually wanted it for Christmas, and my mom was like, no. Because I think my mom kind of figured out what this movie was about, and she was like, you're not getting this movie. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm not getting this movie. My mom didn't like Pee-wee Herman or Pee-wee's Playhouse either. She didn't like Rugrats. I mean, we watched it anyways, me and my brother. But anyways, though. And yeah, I guess it wasn't Christian enough. And now, look at us now. Look at us now.
Pretty bold of you little fucks to assume that I'm not God.
So, I remember watching with my cousins, and I thought the jokes were funny in 2002. And, when you're 10 years old, not everything you think is funny should be going forward with that, But I ended up watching this movie. My mom hates it, but I just want to say at the top of this, when I was a child, I thought this movie was the funniest shit that had ever existed in the entire world. And now I'm an adult, and it makes me cringe that I used to be into that shit. And yeah, but I think, isn't adulthood just finding things you used to do cringy? That's why I guess our parents were like, it's just a phase. It's not a phase, Mom, because they were hoping it was just a phase. But now I'm still emo, I guess. Yeah, so guess not. My mom wouldn't let my aunt get it for me for Christmas. But I remember one year she was like, made my aunt be like, I want you to get him Diary of a Mad Black Woman, and we never watched it. And I have that DVD is somewhere, maybe in the Schwegler ecosystem, but I'm not fully sure. But I do know I still quote, "That's a technical foul," that song, to this day, and no one gets that joke, like my Bad News Bear joke. When the fat kid is on the Atkins diet, and he's like, I can eat as many hot dogs as I want, no buns. And he does. He just eats a lot of hot dogs and boneless. Well, looks like someone likes me on Bumble. Probably don't like them back. That's the type of guy you are, and
This is the type of guy you get.
because only certain women can,
Let's go full throttle.
or some women can.
Feel like a woman, a real woman.
So yeah. What else do I have to say on that? So yeah, I use technical. That's a technical foul. So I think that's all my like backstory to it. It's just a movie I thought was hilarious as a kid, and now I cringe at. So going forward, I also want to say the IMDb rating of this movie is 5.3 out of 10. So if you did not know anything about this movie, I'm going to tell you now. You don't need to watch it. I'm going to tell you everything that happens and help you enjoy it. And
Come on, Mark. Don't be stingy.
okay, so let's just get into the movie. Beer number 5. Here's to feeling good all the time. Felt good. All right. So we're introduced to our main character, Davy Stone, who is played by Adam Sandler and is looking a lot like Adam Sandler. So if you didn't know, this is Adam Sandler. Okay. So we start the movie off like he eats like a ton of food at a Chinese restaurant and then tries to dine and dash. And he's also drunk at the time, like he's trying to get into his car to drive home. Cops pull by and he's like, "Davey, hope you're not planning on driving home." And he's like, "Oh no, officers, I'm gonna walk out." But then the Chinese restaurant owner is like, "How you play but not pay bill?" It's played by Rob Schneider, playing a Chinese person. So it's aged. This movie's aged really well when Rob Schneider is doing Rob Schneider, known for being an anti-vaxxer, is playing an Asian old man who is also crazy throughout this whole fucking movie. So apparently he's only chasing the cops instead of driving, obviously, which is a good choice. Don't drink and drive, folks. Listen to this movie. He hops on a trash can lid and like snowboards using the trash can lid. He's singing a song. By the way, this is a musical, FYI. So I forgot that it was a musical until all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, that's a technical foul. We also did I mention he's a point they made him, he's 33. I'm like, ooh, that's way too close to my age. And so basically he eventually snowboards away, but then eventually he gets caught, obviously, by the cops, because he was snowboarding on a trash can lid, which that can only get you so far, as as I'm aware. In how the world works. That is how the world works. So he goes to court, and so apparently the court's like, this guy's just been a dick to everyone in this entire town forever. Like, and everyone's just like, that's the town dick. I'm like, isn't there a town drunk, not a town dick? Now, I could be a perfect town drunk, but also, I'm a great drunk. As some of you may have known me, I'm a great drunk. Worst case scenario, I fall asleep in places I shouldn't fall asleep in. And I kind of wish I could let everyone know, hey, if it looks like I just passed out, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Just check for a pulse, maybe. So yeah, and I guess his court wants to send him to jail, but I guess this old man named Whitey, who is he's a referee, a professional unpaid referee in this town, which I think I wrote the town's name in, but we haven't gotten to that point yet, so I did not know the town name yet. And so Whitey, also played by Adam Sandler, which is a bad thing, which we will soon learn later as we get into this movie. He's like, I'm going to take him under my wing and make him a better person. If he does anything wrong, I'll let you know. And then he can go to jail. So I was like, okay, I guess he has this last chance to make something of his life, which is very weird, considering this person just seems like he had some trauma in his past, which we will get into. The movie does explain that. I was thinking, like, will this movie explain his trauma? And I was like, maybe, I don't know. Anyways, though, so yeah, I guess, so he's gonna, like, help. Dave's gonna be, like, a referee with him. And also, with Whitey, I guess he has one foot that's really small and one foot that's really large, so he walks very weirdly. And so I guess he's going to teach Davey how to be a referee for basketball. Because Davey, by the way, loves basketball, just like Adam Sandler. Coincidence? I don't think so. Mystery? Maybe. Hotel Trivago. And so Davey is going to be a referee, and he fouls a fat kid playing basketball, for eating everything in sight and needing to wear a bra on court. Now, I'm against, I've watched enough episodes of My 600-Pound Life to know that you shouldn't be fat, but also, this was not an appropriate time to fat shame one. You should fat shame people, but there is an appropriate time when you fat shame someone. This was not an appropriate time, as I will say, and we go forward knowing that this is not an appropriate time to fat shame someone. Oh yeah, and I also thought that was hilarious as a kid, just like a guy wearing a bra. I don't know why women's underwear was so funny to me as a child. It's like, ooh, it's so scandalous. It was kind of one of those things. Okay, I can't be the only one who thinks this when I think about this, but like when you were a kid, you were so interesting, especially in your school, knowing what the girls' bathroom looked like. But now you're an adult and you don't give a shit what a girl's bathroom looks like. Like, it's just probably just a bunch of toilets and shit like that. When you're a kid, you're so interested in that mystery. I don't understand why that's the case. And maybe never will. That's mainly...
This is the type of guy you get.
So, anyways.
Let's go full throttle.
So, yeah, basically he just does that. So, Whitey's like, this isn't inappropriate to do. I'm like, no shit, Whitey. So Whitey takes Davey to the mall, his favorite place in the world, a mall. And then also they have like this cutscene of the same kid trying on a bra. So they're trying to make a meta joke here, and I'm just like, okay, I would have thought this was funny in 2002 or 2003. I may have saw it in 2003, let's be honest. Yeah, I probably thought that was funny. And now I'm like, fat people don't wear bras. Even like the women, fat women don't wear bras. Like, there's a point. Okay, we know the type of fat women who don't wear bras. We all know. Like, when they're so fat, their boobs are so big, and they don't make bras that size. We know that type. I'm not trying to fool anyone here. So, the mall, they're eating shit and whatever, and we then meet Jennifer and her son, Benjamin. Now, those sound like white Christian names, but turns out they're also Jewish, just like Davey. And Benjamin got a Game Boy Advance for Hanukkah. Now, they did, the artwork in this film, I'm not going to say it's, I'm going to say it's a 8 out of 10. Like they really did the Game Boy Advance. But I also want to know about like the marketing that allowed them to put the Game Boy Advance in there. That's interesting. I don't know. I always thought that was interesting. And I'm like, sign of the times. And the Game Boy Advance was probably one of the best. Game Boy Advance in the original DS, not the gray one, but I think the DS Lite. The DS. Let's just go with DS. You can have a DSi. I don't give a fuck. Game Boy Advance and the DS are some of the best systems that have ever existed. And I think that's just fun. And it's weird nowadays when I want to like stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/the Schweezy. I want to play a Game Boy Advance game. It's like I have to do an emulator, and I can't like play it in my hand like this, and like shitty lighting and all that shit. So what was I getting to? And eventually, Davey remembers Jennifer from his childhood. It was a childhood friend / romantic interest. And now Jennifer doesn't like him because he's a complete dick. And he wasn't always a complete dick. And we will get into that later. And, and he had like dreams and aspirations. He loved basketball and shit like that. Davey used to be a good person, but there's some trauma there that he needs to figure out. And then we get a stupid song about Whitey wanting to win some like all-star award, which is like he just wants to be honored for being a referee for like 35 years or whatever the fuck he does. It's small town shit. Now, I know some of you think this is stupid small town shit, but like when your whole existence revolves around a middle of nowhere, nothing fucking town, yeah, that is the case. Stupid fucking awards like that. And I know you're thinking, Schweezy, are you making fun of this guy? No, let me go here. This is the Duke Ellington Award I won in high school. I've kept this on my desk since I've won it, in every sense of the word, and I like it. I mean, it's a quality little statue here thing. Louis Armstrong Jazz Award. I won this in high school, my senior year. So, for those of you who think I'm fucking around and you just found out, I think that's here too. Where was I in my notes? And so, also, yeah, eventually he was gonna drop off Davey at his house, and then Davey's like, well, good, and he kicked him out. Good thing I'm already here. And then Whitey gets stuck in the snow, and Davey's not gonna help him out because I guess they had an argument because Davey's a little bitch. And then Deer come out and help Whitey out from the pain. Now, this is a common thing in this movie that Whitey and Deer are common friends, and that's like he can talk to Deer apparently. That's just the lore of this film, this cinematography. The lore of this film is that he can talk to Deer or whatever. Oh, and then they go to this other scene. So they explain that, like, Whitey, he obviously doesn't get paid for being a referee because he's volunteering. And so he has to do odd jobs. And so construction workers and everyone in this town just takes advantage of this guy. And so eventually they do this thing. He's like, hey, can you clean out the porta potties? And he's like, well, sure thing. Well, I can't do the voice. I'm not going to even try to do the voice right now. But Whitey's like, okay, I'll go ahead and clean the porta potties. But good thing Davey's there throwing up. And then Whitey's like, well, you drink too much. Hangover is God's cure, or whatever fucking shit he says. And then this is the fucking scene in this movie that I don't know why I thought this movie was funny, but nowadays this scene itself makes me cringe like no other. So Davey, he's cleaning up the porta potty. Davey pushes the porta potty down a hill, so now he's covered in shit. And then Davey's like, let me clean you off, and then he sprays him with a hose, and he's frozen over. Not sure how that works. And then of course Whitey can talk to Deer, and they lick off all the ice and shit and stuff like that. Fucking disgusting, and get him clean. So then I guess they try to make a redemption for Davey, and so I guess Whitey is too nice to Davey, and like they're just hanging out at the gym or whatever, and he's like, well, you gotta hang out. And then these two guys it's Davey, Whitey, and Benjamin are both there. All there, because I guess Whitey is watching Davey because his mom had to work and whatever, because she's a divorcee and the father dipped out on them. Too bad Davey could be the love interest. We'll learn that in a bit. And then, so they end up playing basketball with these two guys who are just pissed. And they're like, a loser has to eat this really fat guy's jockstrap. I'm like, I'm all for fat shaming, because some people, you're like, fat is healthy. I'm like, no, it's not. There's a certain point, but also, like, all bodies are different. Don't make fun of, I'm in that weird middle ground where it's like, fat shame people so they lose weight, but also don't make fun of people's bodies. So it's just like cheap fat jokes. Like, you got to eat that guy's jockstrap. I'm like, okay. So they play, and then Whitey gets just the ball chalked in his face. But Davey's just this all-star, like apparently Adam Sandler is in the real world. And he just gets chucked in the fucking face. Like, they take the ball and they just fucking throw it in his face, basically. Like, people just keep picking on Whitey. Oh, yeah, and at that point was when I realized, I'm like, Whitey is mentally disabled, or as you would say, as Republicans would say, the new R word, the old R word. They would call him that. And, I say the joke, Republicans are the new R word, but also actually people who are mentally disabled, it's like, it's not actually that funny to make jokes about those people. Let's be honest. It's not actually that funny. And that's when I learned Whitey was mentally disabled in this film. Like, oh, now these jokes are no longer funny. And so they switch Whitey out with Benjamin, and Davey teaches Benjamin how to play basketball. And now Benjamin's really good at basketball. They end up winning. And Jennifer, Benjamin's mom, sees him. He's like, wow, I'm really impressed with Davey. And then he's like, all right, Benjamin, tell him what I told you to say. And he's like, eat a jockstrap, bitch. And Jennifer's like, oh, cuss words. Don't teach my son cuss words. And then bad things happened. And then they sing a gay little song. And I know you're not supposed to say gay, but this was a gay little song about Davey used to be a good guy until he discovered alcohol. And then he turned into a dick. And in my notes, I wrote, I hope they tell the story about why he's a dick or some backstory, which we do get into. But at that moment when I was watching the film, rewatching it or whatever, I was curious about it. Oh, yeah, and then they put in this song a joke about a guy's like, oh, my wife used to be a man, but now she's a woman. And I'm like, man. And it's like, when you meet a trans woman or a trans man, they work so hard on their appearance to try to pass as the gender they want to be identified as. And I just feel like, I don't know, that's my thing. When, I don't have any problem with trans people. I'm not a fucking TERF like J.K. Rowling. But when you make a joke about it's like, oh, my wife used to be a man, and it's clearly just a man in a wig or dressed like a woman, and they're not putting in the effort to being a woman. Actual trans people put in the effort to be the gender they want to be identified as, and the gender they feel inside, the gender they identify as. And that's the shit that annoys me. I'm not trying to be super woke or whatever, but at least understand fucking what. But it was also 2002, so I don't know what I'm going to crane about. But actual trans people, I mean, at least try and work towards attempting to be the gender they identify as or whatever. So it's, I mean, oh my gosh, the trans jokes in this movie did not age well and are just fucking stupid. And I'm not trying to be the woke guy, but they're just bad jokes in general. Oh yeah, and so the guy who Davey played in basketball ended up burning down his trailer he lived in. He lived in a trailer because he's a fucking loser. And so he has to end up staying with a little old Whitey there. And that's when the infamous, that's a technical foul with his sister Eleanor, which I think when I was a kid I thought they were married, but which looks like they're married. Sometimes, in cartoons, they're the wife and the husband look exactly the same. And that's why incest porn is so prominent now. It's because of those cartoons. So that's a technical foul. If you drink a lot of beer and try to go and smear, that's a technical foul. I can't remember how the song goes, but I'm that's a technical foul. I do that all the time. So, eventually, they do that. But then Davey actually ends up liking them and respecting them, and it seems like he's becoming a better person. So they go to an ice skating rink outside. That's outside. I'm is it over a lake or something? I don't know. I lived in Kansas. I lived in Missouri. I currently live in Tennessee. Outdoor skating rinks, ice skating rinks, don't exist where I live. And he's warming up to Whitey and Eleanor or whatever. And the ice skating rink, the outside. I don't know. That just, it just might be from where I live. I'm probably just being a culture product of where I live. And even Davey's putting in his vote for Whitey for to win the All-Star patch or whatever the bullshit is. And also Whitey is a savant at ice skating. Now I know the mentally disabled guy that they've been making jokes with all movie now can skate, which makes you think of Rain Man, and now he's a savant. I just don't get that joke. There might be a joke in there. But then I guess he told, once Whitey got back to Eleanor, they told the story about when Davey just did a really good job at a basketball game, and then he found out his parents died, and that's when he had to go to foster care, and that's when he became a complete asshole. So we finally learned backstory why this guy is a complete asshole. It's from his parents dying. It's childhood trauma, and he probably should have just saw a therapist, but it was 2002. Therapists didn't exist until 2010, and that's how I assume it. And if you went to a therapist, you were, because in 2010 that was when they started making it okay to go to therapists and stuff like that. And so we learned, and that was the first day of Hanukkah too. So that's why we learned Davey was an asshole, hates the holidays, because it was the first day of Hanukkah and he's Jewish. And so they eventually be like, Davey's basically like, fuck you and everyone. And they're like, you're not welcome in our home anymore. And he's like, I don't give a shit. So now we get to the final act. Whitey and Eleanor are getting ready for the banquet. And then Davey breaks in the mall because he's drunk on an acid trip. So here's to feeling good all the time. And so he's basically like, Benny basically has like an acid trip from all these mall mascots. That's Foot Locker, GNC supplement bottles, not as good as the FNX supplements that you can get using our link in the description. A Panda Express Panda and Coffee Bean coffee. It was like a coffee cup or whatever. And then just some red dress from some Victoria's Secret bullshit. And they give him like some pep talk in song because it's the final day of Hanukkah. And he opens up this card he got from his parents the day they died or whatever, about how they love him and shit like that. But then the cops show up because he broke into the mall. He's like, you're going to jail, Davey. And he breaks away and gets away, and he's getting ready to get on a bus towards New York, where the Jew Mecca, as I assume. But as he's trying to make a clean getaway, the bus blows, like one thumbtack pops 8 tires. Okay, they could have been like, whoa, there's a couple thumbtacks on the road. I guess they popped some of our back tires. They could have done that, but no, one single, okay, some bullshit. So Dave's like, well, I'll be back in 30 minutes. I got to apologize to Whitey. So he tries to go and apologize to Whitey, but he already left. But he sings another gay little song. Sorry for the gay community, but it was a gay little song about how Whitey deserved this award, because Whitey didn't win the award. Because no one likes Whitey because of the implications. Not those implications, but you know what the implications I'm talking about. So he sings another gay little song about how Whitey deserved the award. And like, you can arrest me, but yeah. And then they bring up this woman who has 3 boobs. Like, this is supposed to be a funny joke, which I probably did think was funny in 2002/2003. But nowadays I'm like, why is a woman having 3 boobs a joke? Like, why is this a joke? This is not funny, Adam Sandler. How did you make so many great classics to making complete, utter bullshit? And so, it's very Jewish and whatever. So eventually, because Whitey was upset he lost the award, so we had to go to his favorite place in the world, the mall. And he's like, I haven't been here in 4 hours. So, yeah, and then the whole crew comes to the mall, be like, why do you deserve the award? And like, he wins the 35, and the other 34 winners are there as well, and they give him their patches, and it's all happy ending. And they're like, well, Davey, you and Jennifer better hook up and shit like that and stuff like that. And yeah, that's how this movie ends. So now that we've gone over the movie, what were the lessons of this movie? One thing I learned is Hanukkah is 8 days, even though there's some Jews in the family. I already knew Hanukkah was 8 days. That's not anything I learned. Adam Sandler has not been making good movies for over 20 years, so that's interesting. I was like, Adam Sandler's a good actor. Uncut Gems. I'm like, well, that's one movie. I believe, if we're going to go with an artist, and you're like, okay, let's put all their songs in there or whatever. Okay, yeah, Adam Sandler's not good. He's made a lot of shit movies, and he needs to be remembered. When he dies, he needs to be remembered for making a ton of shit movies. Like, he had some good ones, but he has to be remembered for the shit ones. We have to remember he made a ton of shit, too. And he wanted to make a movie about how he was great at basketball. Apparently, he is good at basketball. I don't know. He seems too old to be playing. He could injure himself really badly if he plays a pickup game. I don't know. And another lesson I learned, a 2002 comedy did not age well to 2021. Now this movie is almost 20 years old. This movie sucks. And I think the final lesson: don't be a dick to the mentally disabled. It's not a funny joke, and I don't think it's a funny joke, and I don't think you're funny either. So, yeah.
Come on, Mark. Don't be stingy.
Well, look at you. You just finished one of the many highlights from Cancel Schweezy. Glad you watched, and I hope you learned something important in your life today. We have more highlights available for you to watch, out now, available now for you to watch. And we got full episodes as well. So don't be stingy and go watch another highlight. And like I said, stay awesome.